Bill and Sue Garland have lived at Rahiri Farm since 1968, when they bought 120 hectares to become the third generation of the family to own it. Since then, they've spent time with farmers and education and science partners, communicating their experiences using the best possible conservation and farming principles along the way.
The farm's 430 hectares. Of that, 370 odd is in grass, 20 hectares of forestry, about 8 hectares of replanted or revegetation native, and the rest is native old forest. There's 14 SNAs on the farm. An SNA is a significant natural area, and so all bar part of 2 have been fenced off and almost all of them protected. We've got 5 QE2 covenants and 2 more pending, and 3 patches of bush and a land management agreement. So we're pretty used to having all those sort of things on our title, and we're pretty used to fencing off and protecting areas of bush. In terms of livestock, we run up to 400 cattle and 2/3 of them are bulls. Bulls are our most profitable livestock class. Don't like them much, but they pay the bills. And they're, of course, dairy beef bulls. In our sheep business, it's a composite flock. We're currently running 1,700 breeding ewes and 500 hoggets. Our main part of our sheep business is supplying the whole food supermarket chain through Te meats or TK meats. And so that requires us to have a supply agreement with TK meats and meet some pretty rigorous animal welfare and QA standards, and have an environmental plan under GAP accreditation, which is Global Animal Partnership. So that, in a nutshell, is our farming business, and we usually have 1 labour unit. Sometimes we have a part-time labour unit, and of course Sue's the main part-time unit.
I'll have a look in this trap as we go by, Sue.
Okay.
We've been farming here for 54 years and doing it together.
Oh, it's a rotten rat.
We're standing in front of a QE2 covenant block that's number 11 in New Zealand, and my parents covenanted it in the 1970s, but since then it's become part of the Mangatautari project, and it's fenced off separately. There's 17 hectares in there now, and the Mangatautari people use it. Last year they had 25 kiwi in here waiting to go down to Wellington and the release of kiwi in the Greater Wellington area. So it's become an important part of the Mangatautari project. But for us it was important because it was our first dabble into conservation, and our local school adopted it. So the Ministry of Education used to send experts up here on things like snails or ferns, and we'd take the children into the bush and we'd learn along with them what was in there. And that was probably a very important part of our development and understanding of conservation and protecting biodiversity. Around the year 2000 or earlier, but earlier than that, I was involved in the Watawara Research Station redesign. And so that was a process we went through where we looked at all the environmental issues as well as the economics of farming, and came up with a redesign plan for part of the Whatawhara Hill Country Research Station. And at about the same time, Sue got sick of me being off farm and not doing enough farm work, and we bought this piece of land in behind us, and it was pretty badly run down, needed quite a bit of investment. Sue and I were able to apply the lessons we learned at Whatawhara to this bit of land in behind us here. It's 52 hectares. There's about 25 hectares that was productive land, good land, but it wasn't being fully utilised because the paddocks were too big and it needed a capital dressing of fertiliser. There was about 6 hectares of native forests in the valley floor, and the rest of it was gorse and barberry and weeds. So we had to go through a planning process to decide how we were going to manage that block. And it's really important at the beginning that you set some clear objectives and know where you want to go. And you need to think about the economics of the farm business at the same time as doing the environmental stuff. Otherwise you're going to go broke, or you're not going to be able to look after what you've already done. 25 hectares was basically fenced off with 6 kilometres of fencing. And then we decided that we'd plant long-term forestry species into the block of forestry. There's 15 hectares of forestry, and it includes some exotics such as Tasmanian blackwood and cypress, but it also includes some natives, kauri, totara and rimu. I guess that if you look at the outcomes from an environmental point of view, it ticks all the boxes. I mean, the bush was pretty munted when we started, but we knew from experience, going back to the 70s, that it would recover quite quickly if we did the right thing by it. And that's take the stock out, keep the weeds out of it, and pest control. And we also planted some rare or uncommon species into this block. So from a biodiversity point of view, it's gone from being a locally significant block to regionally significant because of some of the endangered species and the health of it. The other bit of our farm plan is recognising particularly iwi occupation of this land, and it goes back maybe 500 years. And so we've made a point of inviting iwi onto the property and learning from them what they know about it and sharing what we know about the property and where some of the settlement sites were and some of the eel weirs were and particularly vegetable gardens. And so we've shared that with local iwi and they've shared their knowledge with us, and so it's been a two-way thing. And Te Ao, thanks for including us in this little ceremony for putting up a marker pole. Their ancestors lived here for hundreds of years, and it's really moving when they come on and share the stories or what they've learned about the place. But it's also enhanced our knowledge about farming because they were growing vegetables on this land hundreds of years ago.